You know that feeling, right? That moment when the world around you just kind of fades out and all you can hear is the soundtrack playing in your head? It's the feeling of being the main character. Okay, so, just for a second, close your eyes. Let's imagine this together. The world is a blur of motion and light rushing past you, but in your mind, everything slows down. The camera is steady, and you are the only thing in sharp focus.
And then the music hits. That perfect song comes on, and it just swells at exactly the right moment. It's not just a playlist anymore. It feels like your own personal movie score.
And all those people around you, they just fade into the background. They're not people anymore, they're extras. It's not malicious or anything, they just exist to fill out your scene.
It's such a seductive fantasy, isn't it? But it brings up a huge question. If we are all starring in our own movies, who on earth is left in the audience to watch? So this main character mindset, well, it doesn't just stay in our heads. It starts to twist how we see our everyday lives, turning our whole existence into one long performance. And what's so fascinating is that this main character syndrome isn't some clinical diagnosis you'd find in a psychology textbook. Nope, it's a cultural thing, a social epidemic, really, and it's being supercharged by the algorithms on our screens. Think about it. All that scrolling, all that posting, our phones have quietly taught us to see our own lives as raw footage. You know, something that needs to be edited, packaged, and presented to an audience. And suddenly, the most normal moments are totally reframed as productions. We don't just experience things anymore. We turn them into content opportunities. A simple meal becomes a photo shoot. A painful emotion becomes a narrative for the vlog.
And in that process, we really risk losing our true selves. That line between actually living and just performing, it gets blurrier and blurrier until the mask kind of takes over. But here's the thing, this shift from authentic living to constant performing, it doesn't just affect us. It has this huge and honestly pretty damaging impact on how we see everyone else.
So in this worldview, you're the hero. You have this complex inner life, full of dreams and stories and heartbreak. But everyone else? They risk becoming an NPC, you know? A non-playable character from a video game. They're just there to deliver a line of dialogue or be an obstacle in your story. In this way of seeing other people, it feeds directly into a much larger cultural problem, this narcissism epidemic, where the self, the I, gets so huge that there's literally no room left for we.
And this isn't just a vague feeling, you know. The consequences are measurable, and they are deeply concerning. Studies are showing a really dramatic and worrying drop in empathy scores over just the last 10 years.
And I mean, it makes sense, right? How can you possibly feel for someone when, in your own mind, you've basically written them out of their own story and cast them as a minor character in yours? You can't.
Okay, so let's bring it back to the individual. What's the real, personal cost of always needing to be the star of the show? And this is where we find the really cruel twist, the big irony. The very mindset that's supposed to put you at the absolute center of the universe actually ends up stranding you there, all alone. Because genuine connection, it's not about perfect lighting or having a great script. It's about vulnerability. It's about being messy and imperfect. And sometimes, it's about being willing to be the supporting actor in someone else's story. Which forces us to ask a really tough question. Is that temporary validation, that online clout, really worth a deep, profound, and very real loneliness? But look, this isn't a trap. There is a way out of this. We absolutely have the power to break the script and find our way back to something much more real. And it starts so simply. First, you just stop. You put the phone down. Then, you really look. Look at the people you've been accidentally dismissing as extras. And finally, you let it sink in that their worlds, their stories, they are just as real and vivid and important as your own. So the final takeaway is this. Letting go of that director's chair isn't a loss of control. It's a relief. It's the incredible freedom of just being a part of the world, instead of carrying the massive burden of being its center.